This week on Arizona Illustrated, bringing Arizona to the world for 90 years, exploring the creative life at the Tucson Festival of Books, a final bow from TSO's George Hanson, and Southern Arizona's favorite places. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. Long before the internet or even television, the beauty and culture that is Arizona was being brought to the doorstep of people around the world. This is the story of the evolution of a magazine, from a practical guide for highway engineers to an internationally recognized showcase of landscape photography and Native American art. This is Arizona Highways.
Arizonans take it for granted that we live in one of the most beautiful places on Earth. The whole world has come to know just how spectacular and diverse Arizona's history and landscapes are. It was a simple publication that helped bring Arizona to the world, and has for more than 80 years. Arizona Highways magazine.
Arizona Highways was published originally on April 15th, 1925. It was a very humble beginning for the magazine that we see today. It was basically a 26-page black and white magazine that was published mainly for highway engineers. It was sponsored by the Arizona Highway Department, and the magazine's responsibility was to inform people about new construction so that they could drive on it and travel.
People across the country had fallen in love with their automobiles, and the freedom driving gave them to journey where they wanted, when they wanted. Arizona Highways enticed travelers by highlighting all that the state offers: landscapes and lariats, history and humor, canyons and kivas. From a modest 1,400 miles of paved roads in 1925 to over 60,000 now, the state's come a long way. The number of miles of paved roads changed over time, but the magazine's mission hasn't.
It is indeed a showcase for the state. About 75% of the circulation of Arizona Highways is outside of Arizona. There are subscriptions sent to 120 foreign countries around the world, so there are Arizona files all over the place. We try to provide them the beautiful scenes they're familiar with, but try to also show them some places they've never seen before.
The magazine itself became a tourist destination, allowing readers to experience Arizona from the comfort of their living rooms. Without even realizing it, readers held a small piece of history in their hands in December 1946. Arizona Highways holds the distinction of being the first consumer magazine in the world to have full color on every page. Many credit the late visionary editor Raymond Carlson with transforming the publication. Many of his ideas inspire the magazine's editorial mission to this day.
Raymond always was interested in having really good quality magazines published. He wanted the best paper, the best printers, the best photography, and 4x5 view cameras were producing the best photographs of the landscape. So that's what he tapped into and turned the magazine into a showcase for these top-notch photographers.
Well, the sheer scale of the magazine, its size and dimensions is just wonderful for large format. It's almost like you can kind of walk into the magazines. So Arizona Highways magazine has sort of been an absolute prime display showcase for fine art, large format photography.
The magazine's influence on the art world emerged in other, unexpected ways. Reacting to a national gas shortage in 1974, the editor experimented with slightly different content.
Joe Stacy felt bad about showing people the beautiful state of Arizona, knowing that they couldn't drive there because of the gas shortages and high gas prices. So he decided to make that issue all about Native American art, Indian art, jewelry, rugs, baskets, pottery, and it became the best-selling issue in the history of Arizona Highways. It basically jump-started the Indian art movement, the Indian art industry in the state and in the country.
Today, the Arizona Highways brand includes travel publications, books, calendars, and countless other products that promote and celebrate Arizona. And the magazine is using another highway of sorts. Travelers from around the corner and around the world can discover the state at the Arizona Highways website. From promoting the use of newly constructed highways early in the 20th century to distributing content on the information superhighway in the 21st century, Arizona Highways magazine has grown up with and chronicled a remarkable time of change in Arizona.
The legacy of Arizona Highways is the history that it has compiled in the issues over the years. If you go back through back issues of the magazine, you can see the development of this state.
Arizona Highways is a way to proudly display not only the state, but the fine art that's been created that illustrates the state.
Arizona Highways might have lived a short life if they hadn't carved out that niche of beautiful art photography and beautiful images of the landscape.
Arizona Highways magazine. Capturing that perfect light. Visiting remarkable vistas. Delivering Arizona to the world.
Arizona Highways magazine is still a publication of the Arizona Department of Transportation. The April 2015 issue looks back at its first 9 decades. Happy birthday, Arizona Highways. Are you a book lover? Well, chances are you made it out to the Tucson Festival of Books this year. Since its launch in 2009, the festival has contributed over $1 million to local literacy organizations. 2 years ago, festival organizers started a new program created specifically for Southern Arizona teens with an interest in the creative life.
Right, so I'll give you guys a little bit of background and I'll tell you sort of why college and why I went to college and what it actually did for me and how it propelled me to get to the next level.
Jason Reynolds graduated from the University of Maryland with a bachelor's degree in English. He's also the author of When I Was the Greatest and The Boy in the Black Suit. He's speaking to local teens as part of the Creative Arts Teen Summit, also known as Cats Fiesta Friday. Reynolds relates his early life and how it influenced him as a writer.
My neighborhood has been torn to pieces by crack cocaine, and I can't see myself in anything, in any book, in any magazine. There's nothing talking about my reality. All we had was to turn to hip hop music. It was the only thing that was that were telling our stories. It was saying the things that we wanted to say because no writer was doing it, or at least they weren't publishing it.
Cats Fiesta Friday starts on the University of Arizona campus at Centennial Hall, where 300 teens from 8 area high schools gather on the Friday before the Festival of Books begins.
It's so exciting to welcome you guys onto campus. So welcome to the U of A. We're happy to have you here today.
The program allows these students to meet, hear from, and work with a select group of authors and illustrators attending the festival. Organizers integrate a college-going message into the sessions, encouraging students interested in writing and the creative arts to pursue a college education.
Me as a writer, I like to reflect a lot on my life, on my influences, but my poetry is more on the not dark side, but gloomy side, just the side that I don't share with people.
Frida Cordova is one of the students attending this year.
I like just simple poems, a lot of reflections. I keep a journal.
Frida wants to come away from today's sessions with a certain feeling about her own work.
Hopefully to feel more comfortable in my writing, to publicly share it. I've been wanting to participate in the Poetry Slam held at Bentley's, and I've been going to hear my friends perform and, just getting that more confidence in me to share my poems.
You're going to have the opportunity to interact with some wonderful authors and illustrators.
And these books that I loved, I was a big reader. I loved reading.
Author Amy Nichols shares her early days as an aspiring writer.
So I had this idea that, okay, I would like to do this but it was kind of scary, like the idea of actually writing something and showing it to someone and hoping it to get it published. So I kind of kept it as a secret dream for years and years and years, and I did a whole bunch of other things. I was a web designer, I worked in politics for a while, nothing really fit, and I would whine to my husband, I really want to be a writer, and he would say, well, write something, and I'd be like, no, that's too scary, I don't want to show anybody. Finally, I got to a point where I just felt like if something happened to me and I had not, like if I died and I hadn't actually tried this, I'd have so much regret.
She did try it and published her first book, Now That You're Here.
Our goal was always for me to be home with the kids.
As Nichols and the students make their way over to the workshops in the Student Union, Frida Cordova reflects on the beginning of the day.
She was trying all these things before finally finding the courage or confidence to write. The fear, she called it stupid fear, and I agree because, you know, you never know if you will be published or not, or if you'll get your work to be heard. That's what I want to do. I'm reading it. As a teen, you get kind of scared of rejection or what others going to think about your work.
For my money and in my mind, writer's block is not the absence of ideas, but it's the absence of belief in yourself. And that was something they were talking about in the panel that we just saw. Have any of you guys ever seen or heard of like improv? Do you know what? Yeah, vaguely aware. Yeah, maybe see. Yeah, a little bit on TV. Yeah.
Author Teddy Steinkellner wrote Trash Can Days and the sequel Trash Can Nights.
I want you and your partner to come up with a super special, secret best friends handshake. Walk around. This will all make sense in a second. This game, by the way, is called Rapid Bonding. 10 more seconds, keep going.
Do it again, one more time. Okay, ready? Go.
Basically, I love improvisational theater, and the sort of games and silly exercises that you do and the ways they jog your creativity, I find apply to writing pretty directly, and so we were doing some proto-writing. And I will be the first tree, and I'll help us as we go. Who wants to come in and join me?
I'm a bird watcher.
Yeah! All right, so you take one of those two with you. Just say, I'll take one. I hope that they got just a burst of pure, uncut positivity and some sense of belief and of feeling like writing or creating is something that you are allowed to do and that you should pursue if that's what you want to do with just 1000% passion.
We stand alone on Valentine's Day.
Well, I remember when they were doing the Mice and Men and Lord of the Flies, To Kill a Mockingbird. All the books that you all are still reading, right? The same books, right? So I'm like, yo, To Kill a Mockingbird. It's like, yo, Scout is all right. Right? Scout is all right. But I know tougher girls in my neighborhood. Right? Scout don't look like, you know, Tasha down the block. Scout but that's a reality, right? And because of that reality, it's like, so I close the book. Right? Scout, but I mean, you think about that, right? Like Scout, like, I always, people are like, yo, you don't like To Kill a Mockingbird? I like it now that I'm an adult. I like it now that I've learned some other things. When I was a kid, I was like, yo, Scout's father is a lawyer. My daddy isn't even here.
Jason Reynolds shares how he fell in love with words and language by reading the liner notes from Queen Latifah's Black Rain cassette tape.
I begged my brother to use his Walkman, and I put the earphones on, and I read along to her rapping. And then when the songs were over and the album was done, I read again, right, without the music. And it was only then that I was like 9 years old. It was only then that I realized that this was sort of like my first interaction with poetry, right? These were words in verse, printed on paper, that if I read them without the music behind me, they were just poems. And that was sort of the very beginning. And so from that point on, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a poet. And I started to read. And then over time, it sort of evolved into the novels. But much, much later, 15, 20 years after that.
His message to these students was, whatever your background, whatever your story, find your own inspirations and learn to trust your own creative voice.
Because you speak a certain way, right? Or because you write a certain way, because you have an accent, or because you speak in a certain slang, a certain vernacular. And I'm not telling you that it's always necessary to use all of those things at all times, but I am telling you that you never have to be ashamed of that part of yourself, right? And so I sat down and I wrote my story, and I wrote it the way I wanted to write it. I wrote it using my language. I wrote it in fragmented sentences, some of them, right? It's like, no, they're not all complete sentences. No, they're not.
Okay.
Get rid of all this stuff that you don't.
For Frida Cordova, the day is coming to a close.
Oh, yeah.
She's come away with a newfound confidence about pursuing her own work.
I kept hearing that a lot, like, you just need to do you, and you just need to be yourself and really put it out there and take risks. And it's okay to fail, because even that failure can lead you to something else. And enjoy what you write and do, and share it.
That's what you should do, right?
Right, I'm saying that, like,
Yeah.
I'm really saying.
It's also an opportunity to hear some final words of wisdom from the authors.
Frida, F-R-Y-D-H-A.
Amy Nichols, in particular, made an impression on her.
When I first started out, I would go back and revise that first chapter, and then I was becoming a chapterist and not a novelist. So just go through it, get through that draft, and then you can see the whole thing and step back and revise. You have nothing to lose. Yeah, right? You can do it. Good luck to you. Thank you.
Frida shares a short poem she wrote about writing and this day.
It's a haiku poem, and it goes, staring at the page, my mind wanders, freely caged. Slow, focused, happy I am.
Like what you see on Arizona Illustrated? Visit our webpage at azpm.org to watch and share videos from this episode. You'll also find stories from future programs, an easy way to submit your own story idea, an archive of past episodes of Arizona Illustrated, and you'll find everything you need to stay connected with public broadcasting in Southern Arizona. azpm.org. From time to time, we come upon a short film that captures the essence of a person, place, or event. Well, that's certainly true for this next story. George Hansen has conducted over 100 orchestras and operas on 5 continents. He took his final bow as conductor of the Tucson Symphony Orchestra after a performance in March, and so we thought it fitting to share with you this tribute produced for TSO as a send-off for 2 decades of musical growth and excellence.
As you're preparing to step up on that podium, you are completely insecure. You're questioning every decision you ever made, and am I going to help all these people get to the point where I think we will achieve together what the composer intended? Here is 2, 3.
Principal conductor, music director, Kapellmeister, maestro. Whatever title you prefer, George Hansen has been standing at the Tucson Symphony podium guiding the orchestra for 20 years. He's had a lasting influence on a generation of musicians and audiences. Hansen has worked and studied across acclaimed music capitals of the world. He began as a 4th-generation trumpet player.
Well, my father played principal for the Milwaukee Symphony, and his father was the solo cornetist for the Sells, Floto, Barnum, and Bailey Circus. And his father played trumpet on the streets of Copenhagen before immigrating to the United States.
He was and is an accomplished pianist, but early on he considered a career outside music, specifically as a doctor. The catalyst for his ultimate choice? A recording of Mahler's First.
I was playing the piano about 6 or 8 hours a day, and I came home one night and I put on a record. I didn't really even look at what it was. And by the end of the first 22 minutes of classical music, I had decided that's what I wanted to do, to become a conductor.
As a young assistant conductor, he had powerhouse mentors, among them Kurt Masur and Leonard Bernstein.
The first experience you have as a conductor, usually you're sitting in the audience and you're someone's assistant. And you think, oh, if I were up there, I could do it. And then you get up there, and it's as if you just stepped into a little sound booth where 50% of your hearing goes away. And you make a gesture that you are sure is going to be perfectly clear, and nobody plays with it. And then somebody asks you a question, and it might be a nice innocent question like, you know, would you prefer this up bow or down bow? And you become in this place where the wall of sound just overwhelms you.
1, 2.
I don't know if you ever get back to hearing on the podium everything you would hear in the back of the hall. It takes you pretty much the rest of your conducting life to get to a point where that wall of sound doesn't disturb you. The ego question is a big one for conductors. It takes an enormous amount of ego in the first place to step in front of 80 or 100 musicians, all of whom have trained for 8 or 10 or 12 or 20 years, and tell them, okay, now this is the way you're going to do this.
Lots of sound.
As interpretive artists, we have to present such a compelling performance that we invite everybody in, and they want to stay because they can't turn away from it.
No matter if we're talking or if we're actually playing on stage together, it's very clear that George's #1 goal is to make music, and everything he does serves the music.
Here's something that's written in the trumpet part. So it's 1, 2. Again, though, it's not about finding a different way of doing it. This is not like the fashion industry where you're looking for some way to do something really unusual. You're looking for the composer's intent. The conductor is the one who has to say, okay, here's the tempo, but when we get on stage with the audience there, we are all pretty much having the same experience, whether it's a mountaintop experience or it's a slow-moving train wreck, as we sometimes talk about. We share it all together.
Some maestros like to call the orchestra an instrument. And the instrument that George got was on its way up. The orchestra that George leaves is a really finely tuned machine.
You cannot have a great American city without a great American orchestra. It takes an incredible amount of work from extraordinarily talented people on stage.
Good evening, thank you. Alicia had a baby boy, 7 pounds, 14 ounces.
It takes blood and sweat and tears from the people in the office who are making sure that the books are balanced, that the funds are getting raised. It takes all those people to make it possible. I've been essentially the benefactor of all of that work because I'm the one who gets to stand there and wave my arms around in this beautiful sound. It's truly a group effort, and to that enormous group, I say thank you.
And now, uniquely Southern Arizona buildings, spaces, or spots brought to life each week on our new limited series, Favorite Places.
New to Tucson and sitting at the stoplight at Dodge and Elvernon, it wasn't the Catalinas in the setting sun that took my breath away, but the white, linear edifice in the landscape that gave me pause. What was this pristine civic building poised against the pink and purple shadows of the Catalina Mountains? The Tucson Jewish Community Center, the J, is a destination and a gathering place dedicated to cultivating and enriching Jewish identity, continuity, and wellness, though Judaism is not a requirement for membership. Housed within these white walls is a vibrant and inclusive community. Yet what attracts me to the J is the way this architectonic form is situated in the landscape, striking from multiple angles. Architectural principles of rhythm and repetition are captured in the details. The south elevation's tall recessed windows create a pattern of dramatic shadows and contrast the white concrete exterior. Repetitive and equally spaced square windows march along the north elevation. The building then steps back and introduces a dark, linear, horizontal band of windows, emphasizing the way the building spreads out in the landscape. At the base and entrance of the building stands the Holocaust Memorial, dedicated in 1990. A place of remembrance and hope for the future by Ami H. Shamir. Architects Anderson, DiBartolo, and Pan designed the JCC, which opened in 1988. I don't know their inspiration, but I imagine the work of American architect and modernist Richard Meyer, whose buildings celebrate white architectonic forms, or perhaps a sparkling white Greek temple at the base of the mountains. Either way, the references are timeless. This is a building that can be appreciated from within, up close, or from just a casual drive-by.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. Next week, the joy and healing of riding with Alec, learning to love rattlesnakes, and Southern Arizona's favorite places. I'm Tom McNamara. See you next week.